Hey guys, welcome to the channel and welcome back to the continued build of the Mercedes W204 project. Last time I left off with showing you guys the front coilover install. Today I'm going to show you guys how to finish off with the rear coilover install. It is completely different, mainly because it's not a true coilover. Coilover means that there's a shock absorber and then a spring going over it, or a coil going over it. That's not the situation we have on the back of the W204. It is more like a wishbone suspension, whereas there are independent springs towards the center of the vehicle, and then there are the shock absorbers towards the exterior of the vehicle. So it's a little bit more work, and I'm not gonna lie guys, this is probably the part where if you don't have the tools, I would recommend strongly for you guys to go to a shop and have it done, or specifically just for these springs. But I'm going to show you guys today, if you guys have the tools and if you guys want to invest some money into some tools, how to do it yourself. Let's go ahead and jump in. In the last video, I forgot to mention jacking and safely jacking up the vehicle. That's something that's really important, and everybody should practice this. Anytime you jack up a vehicle, always make sure that you're using the dedicated jack points and nice sturdy jack stands. Make sure your jack stands are able to support the weight of the vehicle that you intend to jack up. Also, make sure that they are locked and follow all safety instructions with the jack stands. Before you go underneath the car, always give it a push just to make sure that there is nothing loose. The worst that can happen in this case is you push it, it falls off the jack stands, damages the component, but it saves your life, because that could have been you underneath of it. And as you guys can see here, the vehicle is safely jacked up. How did I jack up the rear is a question that I get asked a lot. The way that I do it is I go after the pumpkin booty. The pumpkin booty is mechanics term for the rear differential. This is where I jack it up from. I get my jack point right here, and then I jack it straight up from the pumpkin booty. That way I'm able to put two jack stands in the rear. So now that I have everything all taken care of, I can start to work on the removal of the spring. As you guys can see here, this is the spring that everybody hates. And then the very easy to replace shock absorber. So let's start off by removing the very easy to replace shock absorber to take some of that weight and some of that tension off of the rear control arm. So to remove the rear shocks, what you're going to need to do is take everything out of your trunk, all the trunk liner, all of this, because they're located way off in that direction over there. I know sometimes people like to just remove the clips around that side and then push it back, which you can. There's nothing wrong with that. Just be aware that you guys may get a crease that happens here if that's the case that you guys want to do that. It's just easier for the sake of the project just to take it all out. I know if you guys went ahead and put in the sub that you guys have to remove that. It's just part of life, guys. It's part of being part of working on cars. And there you go. By removing the trunk liner, you guys are able to access the top of the shock nuts. There's only two of them right here, and very simple to get them out. And this is a question I get asked a lot, profusely. Where do the two fiber optic cables go to in the back of my radio? Right there, to the HD, XM, Sirius, whatever you want to call it, radio that I never use. I'm probably 9 out of 10 going to take that out and put an amplifier there to power up all the speakers and then remove all of this. But that's for a whole nother project. That's for the door speaker situation. So what I'm going to do now is take this off and then go on down here and remove the shock off of the vehicle. Now what we're going to do is remove the shock from the rear of the vehicle. But to do this, you first have to remove this piece of plastic. And this piece of plastic is held in with 4 clips. There's 2 in the back, there's 1 over here, there's 1 over there, and then there's 2 up front. Let's go ahead, get underneath the car, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. As you guys can see, this is one of the clips. The best way to do it is get a pair of needle nose pliers and then pinch the 2 tabs together, and then this will allow you to lower this plastic clip off of the vehicle. Let's go ahead and get this done. See, just like that. And then we're going to do it on the other side. If you guys don't have this plastic piece on your vehicle, don't freak out. It's just on there to slow down the rust process, especially if you guys live up north. There's the part number in case you guys want to buy one for your car. Now guys, before you remove the actual shock assembly, it's important that you raise the shock by 4 millimeters, or give or take just a little bit, just to get some of that initial preload off of the vehicle. Now we're going to go ahead, take an E14, put it on this side right there, just like that, and then we'll go to the other side and we're going to go ahead and use a 16 millimeter socket to remove the bottom bolt. And now with that bolt safely loosened and disconnected, we're going to go ahead and remove these two 13 millimeter nuts up top. It's important before you guys attempt to try and remove this shock off the vehicle to take this trim piece off, because this trim piece actually extends 1.5 inches lower than it should and will make getting this out extremely difficult, because you can't just pull this up and move it to the left because you have a brake line right here. So you want to very carefully take all this off and then pull downward, and then we'll slide it out. And there you go guys, with the liner out of the way, we can now remove the actual shock assembly. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up here, and at the same time we're going to be pulling down to get this to clear off all of these lines. And there you go guys, this is the actual shock, and as you guys can see, this was one of the main reasons that I opted to just switch over to coilovers, because I didn't want to do springs, mainly because these had 60,000 miles on them, and as you guys can see here, they're beginning to break apart already. So I was looking at the replacement cost of all of my shocks plus the springs, and it ended up costing more than just switching over to coilovers. So that's something really important you guys should consider before you actually make the decision. If you're up for it and you already are looking at the expenses on hand, you might as well just upgrade. So now that I have this off the car, let's go ahead and get that spring out of there. So now to install our new springs, which are these right here, they do have adjustable heights on them, because that's how you raise and lower the height of a vehicle. On this situation, we're going to use this tool right here that is designed specifically for Mercedes-Benz to remove the rear spring. We're going to take this. This is actually called a telescoping spring compressor, and without this tool, you guys are just out of luck, because that's not going to happen. And you're going to grab any one of these large ones. You guys can grab this large one and then this small one, and then what you're going to want to do is install the larger one on the bottom, like so. Just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and put the smaller one up top, as high as it can go. Screw it, let's go ahead and put it right there. And then you guys are going to take the telescoping rod, feed it through, and then it's going to lock itself into place and begin to bring all of this together. And now with the spring compressor in position, I'm just going to go ahead and go down here, and I'm going to use a 19 millimeter socket and do this by hand. You don't want to use power tools when compressing this spring. And right about here is when my second GoPro, decided to crap out, and I lost all of the footage that showed me removing the main bolt that connects the control arm to the subframe. But let me go ahead and explain what happened. By compressing this spring, that alleviates a lot of the force and the tension that is on the control arm. With the force and the tension off of the control arm, I am able to remove that massive 32 millimeter 12-point socket and the 15 millimeter nut that is holding this control arm to the subframe of the vehicle.
The subframe of the vehicle is towards the rear differential. It's one big bolt. You can't miss it. There's no way. And as you guys can see from this angle, this is what it looks like after that bolt has been removed. Now I'm going to pull the telescoping tool up through the hole that is designed for it to pass through, and then I'm going to very carefully pull all this out, and I forgot just how much this whole thing weighed, so I just ended up dropping it and dragging it like a dead carcass across the floor. And this is where more of the footage is gone, and I'm very upset, and I do apologize. But as you guys can see here, I'm just lining up everything, just making sure all my components are still lining up perfectly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the new spring in here because it's much smaller, and then I'm going to use the jack to compress it up and then put my bolt right back through the entire thing.
So I have been a little bit hesitant to upload the remaining install of this video for two reasons. First, the removal footage of that spring coming out turned to be corrupted, and that really agitated me to the point that it's unexplainable. But gonna describe it the best way while showing you guys pictures on Instagram that I posted. Those of you guys that don't follow me on Instagram, you guys really should, because that's the fastest way to get a hold of me, and that is where I show advanced pictures of things that are going to be happening to the car. So it's kind of like a sneak peek, kind of advanced access. My Instagram is going to be right here. It's at Raymond Urias Jr., and that is me. I don't have Facebook. I don't have any of that. So getting back to this rear spring install, turned out to be a little bit more difficult than I had originally planned. My tool was able to get in there and to compress it, but the problem was I couldn't compress it enough. So what I had to do was remove the rear trailing arm, which is connected here with a 12-point Torx bit, and then the bolt is on the other side. It's right over here. And what I primarily ended up doing was I used my tool to compress the spring. And with the spring fully compressed, the maximum that I could do, I removed the lower trailing arm, and that allowed me to safely remove it in that direction. I would definitely never recommend anybody remove that bolt without taking the compression off of this spring, because this spring is under a lot of tension. And I'm going to show you guys just how much tension, because I have all my original components over here. This is the original spring. Look at the size of it. This is gonna scare you guys a little bit, and I want it to scare you guys. Look at just how much you have to compress that spring to get it to fit in that location. So if you guys plan on doing this yourself, exercise a lot of caution, and please practice safe and responsibility using the correct tools. If you do not feel safe compressing a spring, because springs when they're fully compressed can create a very dangerous situation, and I have seen people hurt themselves severely because all it takes is one accidental disconnect of a spring compression tool, and this thing unleashes all of this force back into its normal position, which it could kill you. So that's without me sugarcoating it and without me hyping it up. It is a dangerous thing. Anybody that tells you otherwise when they deal with springs, it's not telling you the truth. But when the springs were installed, I went ahead and I adjusted my ride height, which is the exact same way that I showed in this video up here. It's simply the lock is on the top and then the perch is on the bottom, and you adjust it accordingly. And I wanted a overall complete level height of the car to be 25 1/8 all the way around, and I succeeded in accomplishing that. And after I got done with all of that, I set the preload on my rear shocks, which isn't difficult at all. When you guys have the vehicle like this, when it's not in any tension in any way, shape, or form, you just jack the hub up about 4 millimeters, and then you slide in the bolt into it, and then you lock it into place right here. This is the lock collar for the height adjustment of the preload. And when it's set up like that, everything is perfect. The ride quality from this particular setup, which is through BC Coilovers, is phenomenal. It's actually, my wife said it best, it feels better than the factory Mercedes suspension because I can adjust the dampening, which is up here. Harder dampening is going to be a harder ride because the shock won't go up and down as quickly. Softer dampening, if you guys can adjust it this way, softer dampening means that if you guys hit a bump in the road, it's going to compress more, so it's going to give you guys a more floaty feel. It's up to you as a driver to decide how you guys want to adjust your dampening on the fronts and the rears, and that's what I love about the BC coilover system, is you guys can adjust the fronts and the rears independently. So that is the finished install of this whole component, and I really do apologize to you guys. This is primarily the reason why I didn't want to upload this video, because I felt like it was incomplete, but hopefully just going over it and showing you guys the pictures with narration, it will help some of you guys out. It is something that I really do apologize for, but this is the complete install of the rear, and without a question, definitely if you guys are afraid of dealing with that spring, don't. Just take it to a shop. They'll gladly change out both sides for maybe 180 bucks. So there you go. That is the complete install. I'm not even going to call it complete because that's screw up. So that is my representation of installing the rear components onto the Mercedes-Benz W204. It is a very unfortunate situation that happened the way it did, but in a way I'm kind of happy because I have a feeling a lot of you guys are going to try doing this yourself, and it's something that I would not recommend, to change out that rear spring if you guys have never had any experience working with spring compression tools. And of course, all of this I'm going to keep because later on down the road, maybe if I don't decide to bury this car with me, maybe another driver just won't like the coilover system, even though, like I have said, it rides a lot smoother than that. That was a very harsh ride, and this is a world of difference, and I personally love it. I love it, and I love the new look that it gives to my car, which brings me to my next video. My next video, I'm going to give you guys a full walk around the car once the springs have settled. I'm going to explain to you guys some things that I plan on doing, which is going to be the door speakers next. And of course, I'm going to do the much anticipated video that a lot of you guys have been asking for, whether or not you guys should buy a Mercedes-Benz W204, the cost of ownership, the maintenance cost, and my overall thoughts and impressions of owning this vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and give it my score, which is different than a Doug score because Doug just drives the cars for 1 hour. I'm going to tell you guys what it's like to have owned this car for 3 years. And I'm going to tell you also the most common failures that are going to happen to you and how much are they going to cost you guys when they do happen. So in the meantime, guys, hopefully, despite all the bad stuff that happened, you guys enjoy this video, and hopefully it taught you something. For sure, it taught you guys how to change out those rear shocks, so you guys have that going for you. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, give the video a like if it showed you guys anything, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.